Well, hello. Saludos a mis amigos. Greetings, friends. Maxine here. My last day in sunny Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco, Mexico. And my topic for today is me, you, and us. And specifically, we're going to talk about healthy boundaries. And why should we bother with such a thing? um, so sometimes we're kind of afraid to state our boundaries and to set boundaries with people. We were kind of not, most of us, we weren't raised to do such a thing. Oh, thank you. Hi, sweet. Um, many of us, if you're like me, were raised to be a pleaser, to take care of other people, and to feel like it's selfish if I have a need, to express a need, to make a request. And looks like a few of you are can relate. Thank you for sharing. So happy to see you, Tina, Joe, and Michael. Um, so, I just want to start by saying that human beings we're not alone in this creation, and our experiences aren't unique to just us, but even at the molecular level, at the level of microorganisms, the smallest little organisms that are living have a same kind of tension that they deal with, which is a tension between, hi Lloyd, welcome. It's a tension between individual autonomous being and being part of, participating in, and even being in service to a larger organism or whole. So when we think about what's larger than we are, from a molecular level, well, it's a larger entity. So for instance, we humans are made up of lots of microscopic living creatures. Basically, we could say we have bugs all inhabiting our intestinal tract, our internal milieu, which represents 70% of our immune system that's protecting us. And all the time, that whole immune system is telling us what is self and what is other, what is for us and what is not for us. And it's constantly working with that material of me versus you, and what is for the good of the whole organism, working together. When things get out of balance, then we end up with disease, right? And all different kinds of, and that may be on a physical level or physiological level, it may be on a emotional level, it may be lots of different kinds of ways imbalances or disharmonies can affect us. And so if you think about, even, let's talk about ants and ant colonies. Ants are their own individual beings, and they serve the colony. They serve the whole community, and they work together. So if one ant is down for the count, the other ants come around, they gather together, they'll lift the ant up, and they'll carry it back to the colony. And they work together to carry food for the community. All animals have this kind of impulse, and all organisms do, and we humans do too. So what's happened over time that's created a massive disharmony for us interpersonally, and then also for us as a community, as a global community, is that we have moved away from these original impulses, these original biological imperatives, if you will, by overemphasizing our cognitive process. It's an interesting dynamic because the human brain is very highly developed, but it's almost as if I would say we're a little bit overdeveloped in the cognitive, and at quite at peril to the rest of what it takes for survival and thrival, because we're not alone here. And we rely on the entire ecosystem, as the entire ecosystem relies on us, we could say. So how do we address how do we begin to see our connection to this whole and begin to serve that, as well as to really take authentic and profound care of ourselves. So what I propose is that we really need to start right here with ourselves. And so we create healthy boundaries within. And so one way that we do that is we begin to identify what we're feeling and what we need. And in the very beginning, if somebody's not used to doing this, it can be challenging, right? Anybody? Can anybody relate? You may have been raised to believe that if you identify a need that you have, that makes you needy, and therefore that's not considered a very good thing to be. Oh my gosh, God forbid, I am needy, I have needs. And yet all of us have needs. Anybody want to throw in about a basic human need? What's a basic human need we all have? Love, respect. Anybody? I know you're there. I can see you there. So what are some basic human needs, guys? Acknowledgement, acceptance, right? These are basic human needs. Nourishment, basic human need. Shelter from the cold, from the weather sometimes, right? So, all right, we're going to shift for just a moment and talk about feelings. Because a lot of times we override our feelings. And there's a reason why we have feelings. And it's really simple, but we sometimes forget it. Feelings are signals that indicate whether we're in coherence or out of alignment with our needs. Are our needs being met, or are they not being met? That's the value of feelings, okay? That's right there. So for instance, if I'm feeling uncomfortable and I find like I'm with some friends or in a circle or on a street somewhere, and all of a sudden I'm feeling like a little bit nervous, if I take a moment to pay attention to that rather than just keep going, I can begin to discern why I'm feeling uncomfortable. What's out of whack inside? What basic need isn't being met? And so I might find, wow, I haven't eaten in 6 hours and I'm getting a little jittery. That discomfort, that nervousness is actually a physiological response to low blood sugar. Anybody here have that experience? Anybody with adrenal fatigue or stress, kind of chronic stress will know what this experience is like. It starts to set the blood sugar off, and we get we can get jittery. We can get, the brain can fog up, and you start to have decreased cognitive function. Sometimes people get dizzy, and it can also make a person feel very agitated. So it can bring up anger. So that's just an example. Another example would be that actually I'm getting signs and signals from my body that there's danger around. And we tend to forget that we're animals and we have a physiological response to danger. Here's an example. When I lived at Kayumari, which was on 168 acres out in the woods, off the grid, in the woods, not very many people there. There was a lot of wildlife. And I lived in a yurt, which is kind of like, it's kind of like a tent. It's a canvas over a structure, a wood lath. And so the elements, you're protected from the elements, but the sounds of nature were very, very close. And one time I was sitting there and all of a sudden I noticed, and it was quiet. So of course it's easier to pay attention to our signaling system, our feelings, when things are quiet around us, right? A lot harder when there's a lot going on and maybe pressures on us. But in this case, it was pretty quiet. I think I might have even been meditating at the time. And all of a sudden I noticed all the hairs on the back of my neck went, and it was like I gasped. I noticed my breath changed. So I went, well, what's that about? And I got even stiller. This time, instead of being internal, I was paying attention to what was around me. And I heard breathing. And I recognized that there was a big cat outside on the other side of that skin. So there were a lot of mountain lions up there and bear. And so many times, well, after a while, I learned how to recognize that these other living creatures were around me because my animal body responded to that animal body. And that's how attuned our signaling is when we listen, when we really pay attention. Has anybody who understands, who's had an experience like this, want to do a thumbs up or a heart? Show me a little love. Okay, so that's an example. Another example could be, you may have been on a street in the city sometime and a similar thing happened and you suddenly got like a feeling like somebody was behind you and looking at you, and you turn around and sure enough, that's happening. So we all have a very refined sensory organism that is built into us. The more that we tune in with these things, if we can get really present and pay attention, then we start to get information. And that information allows us to take action. That's appropriate action. So this is the me part. How I take care of me, and I tune in with the feelings. Now, I also want to be part of a community, and I want to be connected with other people. And sometimes for me, it's really hard when I'm with other people to continue to hold what I need, because I'm so oriented to kind of wanting to merge and connect with others and make sure that other people are comfortable and happy. So one of the hardest things that I do in my life is to take a moment when somebody asks me for maybe my attention or to do something, maybe with them, maybe a favor, whatever it is. Instead of automatically saying yes, and then sometimes finding out that it may not work for me, and then maybe you feel a little resentful or sticky about it, to take a moment and really check in. If it's easy, if it's an easy yes, if it's like green light, go, then I can say yes, and I'm wholehearted and I'm 100% about that. And that feels really good. That's when it's a win-win. I can show up, be present, give what's being requested, and I love that. That's a great feeling. And I know you know what that's like too. Sometimes I've got a lot of other things on my plate, so I have to really assess. And I'll start to feel contracted or agitated. This person even, I might even project on them that they are bothering me. And really what it's about is I don't have the space to take it on at that moment. And so then if I can say, I've got a couple things ahead of me here that I really need to attend to right now, but I could be there for you tomorrow morning. Would that work for you? It's kind of like a negotiation. And if you're like me, if I need something from somebody and they can't really give me their full attention, I'd rather they tell me that. And then if they say, how about tomorrow morning? I can say, well, I need it more urgently now, so I'm going to go call on somebody else. Or, yeah, that would be great. And then that gives me like 24 hours to continue to work whatever's going on and prepare. Sometimes by that point, I don't need whatever I was asking for anymore, and other times I do. And then it's freely given. And we all get our needs met that way. So this is how we begin to really show up with more presence with one another, with ourselves and the rest of the world. This is how we can be of better service to the community, to the collective, to Mother Earth, by starting within. And so we're going to talk more at other times about how to begin to merge with the Mother Earth, with the elements of this life, so that we can re-enter that reciprocity with the source of our lives. We'll do that at another time. But in the meantime, when we take care of ourselves, then we can better show up for each other, and then we're taking care of us. So it always starts in that order, not the other way in, okay? And thanks for listening today. That was my topic for today. Tomorrow I'll be back in Eugene, Oregon, and preparing for the next leg of my journey to California and Sebastopol, where I'll be sharing about La Casa del Maíz and the situation with our food supply and what we can do individually and together to serve the nourishment of all of this life, ourselves, the rest of the human community, our family and relatives, and then also in a way that is regenerative rather than destructive or extractive on Mother Earth, so we can really begin to turn that tide. Take care of the other living creatures on this earth as we take care of ourselves. Make sure that there's enough to go around. Mother has, when we pay attention to what Mother Nature has provided for us, we notice that she doesn't pick and choose. She's generous and unconditional. And so we can begin to learn to find that way back to that ourselves. Thank you for listening. I love you. And I look forward to hearing from you maybe later. Peace out, folks. Adios.